Michael Burgess. He's a Republican of Texas. He is also a doctor. What would you like to see happen now? What should the government be doing?
Well, I'll tell you, Don, one of my concerns since we had an earlier hearing at the end of September is there really didn't seem to be anyone in charge. You remember back in 9/11 how the concern was from the federal side, everything was siloed and no one was talking to each other. You get that same impression right now, and you also get the same sort of feeling you got right after Katrina, that people are making this up as they go along. You would have thought there would have been an off-the-shelf preparation that would have been put into place, a plan that was been put into place. But we're asking people in the trenches back home to be able to deal with a situation that no one in this country has ever had to deal with before, except in very controlled circumstances.
You want to see a travel restriction or a travel ban, at least for the moment?
That is correct. That was actually part of the pandemic plan from 2005 that was amended last July to include Ebola. So the authority is already there. It just needs to be exercised. And, you know, even going back to the bird flu in 2005, it was recognized that migratory pathways would not respect a national border, but still would allow time to perhaps delay the onset of the illness or the extensive onset of illness in this country and allow the system a chance to catch up and adapt to it.
And speaking of travel,
we're missing that.
Yeah, speaking of travel, you know, Amber Vincent got on the plane, temperature 99.5 degrees, and she called the CDC. They said it was okay for her to fly. Who is at fault here?
Well, clearly that is information that, that information should not have been transmitted back to her. She was right to call. She was right to ask a question. Hey, I'm in this group. I'm running a low-grade temp. What to do here? I've had this long-standing plan, and I was planning on traveling. Clearly the right answer was, no, ma'am, do not get on the plane. Let us come to you. And it's unfortunate that it happened that way. And now, of course, as a consequence, instead of the 120 people that were under surveillance, we've now got 160 or more that are under surveillance. And unfortunately, that's how a crisis like this grows and grows out of proportion.
I would imagine that you're familiar with Texas Health Presbyterian Hospitals, just a couple miles away from your district.
Sure.
You are a doctor as well.
I was on the staff there several years ago.
You are. So, and by all accounts, before this, that it was, you know, a hospital that was, you know, gives great care.
Great. It was right where my son was born there. I mean, yes, I have faith in the institution. I did part of my residency there, and I was on the staff there for several years.
So then what are your constituents? What are people saying in your area about what's happening there? What is a concern level?
Well, they're obviously concerned about what happened at the hospital, and I think you played the referenced part of the testimony that's going to be given tomorrow. It's tough that the guy was sent out to the emergency room when he first presented, but that was the first case of active Ebola that had ever presented in this country. Now, the CDC had been telling us for several months that they had people prepared. You saw the president and Dr. Frieda in the middle of September come out and say Ebola is not in this country, but if it shows we're ready. But the fact of the matter was we weren't. Yeah. And where were the protocols that were supposed to be put in place that the CDC then said were breached? Where was the training and where was the activity? Look, I have known for some time that healthcare workers are on the front line. 10% of the deaths in Western Africa are healthcare workers.
And Congressman, I want to get, not to cut you off, but speaking of people on the
Sure.
front line, I want to get your reaction to this in the short time we have left. CNN has learned that the Obama administration expects to announce tomorrow that the Pentagon will be given the authority to call it reservists to deploy to West Africa to fight the Ebola crisis. Do you think this is a good idea?
Well, I know they need help, and I know they need the infrastructure, but you know what? I would really just like to see a general in charge of the fight in this country. Right now, you have the feeling that no one is actually in charge, and that's a tough feeling with the amount of discomfort and chaos that surrounds this case.
Congressman Michael Burgess, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
President Obama